Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Assistant Managing Editor Rob LeFranco. Forbes just released our Billionaires list, and I'm excited to talk to you about the celebrities who made the cut. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, it's been a boom over the past few years, a decade or so, really. It's been really hard for an entertainer to cross over from what has been historically our earnings lists, where we track who makes the most money in sports or entertainment, over to a wealth list, which tracks net worth. The reason, basically, as we talk to managers and lawyers, etc., it's typically a cash business, entertainment, and you typically can't shield your taxes the way most wealthy people can. So they're collecting income, they're paying whatever the 50% or tax margin is, and it's really hard to build wealth that way. So we had very, very few numbers to cross over, and that all changed about 10 years ago.
Can you explain that? Why have we seen this boom within the last decade?
It's hard to explain exactly why. Part of it is just the level of income that celebrities are making. I mean, I don't know what Thurman Munson's pay was as catcher of the Yankees, but I can tell you it was infinitely smaller than the catcher of the Yankees today. So you're talking about people like LeBron James who are making in excess of $100 million a year, both in salary and in endorsements. Those numbers they're mind-boggling. If you're making that much money and you're smart, and he's teamed up with a guy named Paul Walker in Los Angeles who runs a PE firm basically for famous people, for famous celebrities. And the idea is, take that earning money, the earnings that you're collecting, and let's invest it into assets because assets appreciate. It's wealth creation. It's generational wealth. They learned that lesson. Whether they learned it 10 years ago when we started to track and see all of this crossover happening, I don't know, or the advisors got to them, but somehow they figured out how to create wealth.
So, Rob, I want to just dive right into the list. Who are the celebrities we're seeing as billionaires in 2023?
Yeah, we've got 3 new ones this year. The newest one we've discovered is Jimmy Buffett. He's on our cover of the current issue. We've also added Tiger Woods and LeBron James. All 3 of them are new to the list this year. Recent additions have been Tyler Perry and Rihanna, Jay-Z, Kanye West, as we know, famously came and went. J.K. Rowling and Kylie Jenner also came and went. But they are part of this group of folks who since 2015 are part of what we're calling, because there's nothing else to call it, a celebrity wealth boom. Because when the original Forbes 400 came out, there was 1 celebrity on the list. And then there were 2 or 3, Bob Hope, Merv Griffin, Dick Clark, entrepreneurs in the entertainment business, but they were really in limited numbers. And then you hit this sort of 90s era where you had 3 who were anchors of the whole thing, Oprah, Spielberg, and George Lucas. And that was it for a decade or 2. And then suddenly you hit this period where either the money that was coming into these celebrities increased so much, or what they were able to do with the money, and that's what we're really seeing, is not only are they making a lot more, but they're also creating consumer products brands. Or like Michael Jordan, who was another one, who teams up with a company like Nike to collect enormous amounts of cash from the sale of products that they put their name to. And then they do things like buy the Charlotte Hornets, which, incredible investment. He bought it at $175 million. It's worth $1.7 billion.
I think that's a really interesting aspect. So are these celebrities making more money based on their career that they're known for? Let's say you're Tiger Woods. Are you making more money golfing? Or are you making more money based on your side businesses, your endorsements, things like that?
It's a little bit of a mix. It's not so cut and dry. Like a guy like Tyler Perry, for example, who is about as pure of an entrepreneur in the entertainment industry as exists. In fact, I was out talking to a lawyer a few years ago who was lamenting the fact that in the age of streaming, there's no ownership anymore. It used to be you collected a huge piece of the profits of syndication or movies. And he's like, they took away our home runs. All we have are singles and doubles. The only one who owns anything anymore is Tyler Perry. And basically it's because he's a one-man shop. He writes, produces, and directs and owns everything that he does. So there's a guy who's pretty much strictly outside of the fact that his 300 acres of movie studio stuff in Atlanta is actually real estate. Everything else is entertainment. And then you look at someone like Rihanna, whose music earnings are actually quite small, in fact, dwarfed by the amount that she has from her consumer products company, Fenty, which has made her a billionaire.
I do want to talk about another musician that you mentioned, the new addition of the year, Jimmy Buffett, which is sounds surprising because Jimmy Buffett has been really a household name for decades. But for the younger viewers out there, first, before we dive in, can you explain who Jimmy Buffett is?
It's kind of funny, but yes, Jimmy Buffett used to be considered a country songwriter way back in the ancient days of the 1960s, where he was a singer-songwriter busking around, and then became famous for what became known as trop rock. In Margaritaville, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Basically, island-themed, beach-themed, feel-good country/pop music.
So what did you discover about Jimmy Buffett and his businesses this past year?
We've had a long history with Jimmy Buffett, in fact, going back about 25 years. The reason being that we started tracking the highest paid entertainers around about the late 1980s. And Jimmy Buffett, along with Grateful Dead, was famous for this. They didn't make a lot on their records, but they toured every year, and it was like clockwork. Every year, the Grateful Dead would do $50 million. Every year, it's the same thing. Very low-cost tour. They were going out with lots of explosions and video screens. It was a bunch of guys stoned out of their minds playing. That was it. Jimmy Buffett, same thing. He's got a band he needs to pay. Now he does video screens. But it's basically Jimmy and his attitude and his incredibly rabid base of parrot head fans who show up every year and have made him one of the top grossing tours every year. When we sat down with Jimmy back in 1993, I think it was, Margaritaville, which is the company he created out of the song, was really just getting started. And Jimmy Buffett's not the kind of guy who is a businessman at heart. He's a guy who wants to have fun. He's a musician. He's an artist. But what really made him mad was seeing how corporations and small businesses were taking advantage of something he created, which was Margaritaville, which became an instant hit when it came out. He was seeing things like T-shirt shops in Key West were selling T-shirts that said Jimmy Buffett. And he's like, if they're going to do it, no, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right. That escalated when he opened up his first restaurant and then bar, and it became a big success. Companies like Walt Disney and Universal came in, and they wanted a piece of the action. But he had been shunted by the music industry at the time, and he was being ignored. Nobody was giving him airplay or anything like that. So he was angry at the music business and decided, no way. I've seen the little guys do it, and I'll let some of them go because it's not worth it, and they're just trying to make a living. But I'm going to set up my own operation, and you big guys aren't touching it. I'm going to create it, and I'm going to manage it. And that's how Margaritaville, the Empire, got started, which is in addition to all of his music stuff. And he teamed up with a former restaurant executive named John Colin. And they now have a holding company that is restaurants, bars, cruises, casinos, hotels, living residences that does $2.2 billion a year, all from the one song.
So does this Margaritaville Empire constitute most of his wealth compared to him touring and his music catalog?
It does not, actually. What does constitute, we calculate that the business itself, Margaritaville, is worth about $900 million, more or less. That's our valuation of the company. He owns about 28% of it. So in terms of the assets that Margaritaville has created, or Jimmy Buffett has been behind, it's the most valuable. He just owns a smaller piece of it. So his fortune, his personal fortune, is really mostly from the cash that he's earned from the songs and from the performances, from the concerts. Again, every year he goes out, he's ranked among one of the top grossing tours. He also told us that he generally takes between 50 and 60% of the money from the tour. So if you're doing $50 million a year, every year, year in and year out, and you're taking half of that, and then you invest it, one thing he also told us in 1994 is that he has been buying one share of Berkshire Hathaway every year. At least he started in 1980. Now, Berkshire Hathaway is the company run by Warren Buffett. They're not related, though many people think they are, but they are friends. And Warren Buffett has been a business advisor to him. So, like I said, Jimmy is an artist, but he's also very smart about money.
So how much is he worth? He's smart about money. He's on the billionaires list, so it must be a lot.
We calculated it just above $1 billion. There's some, wiggle room in there. We valued his song catalog at about $50 million, which is a lot less than you seeing people like Bruce Springsteen or Sting or Bob Dylan. They're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. But think about all the hits that Bruce Springsteen has written. Think about all the hits that Sting has written. Jimmy's no slouch, but he's really only got one or two or three top hits. And so there's a limit to how much that can be sold for. But anyone would pay to get a piece of Margaritaville.
It's really interesting that Margaritaville was really spun out of one song into this empire. Is this completely unprecedented? Have you seen any business like this?
It's unique. Unprecedented, I don't know. Tyler Perry's business is equally impressive in a different sort of way. Jimmy is, I don't know about unprecedented. It's extremely unique. The thing that I was impressed with sitting down with him the first time was just how much he got the numbers, but kind of didn't care. It's like this wasn't a guy who was out there to get wealthy and build wealth and show the world that he could do that. It was just a guy who's like, this is my thing, man. Don't take it. I'm going to do it right because you're doing it wrong. Don't mess with me. And that attitude fueled him. So it's unique in that most musicians don't create this kind of empire. You know, way back in the 90s, Perry Farrell created Lollapalooza, which is still going today, but it's pretty limited in scope. And Rihanna created Fenty, but it's in conjunction with a consumer products brand. Jimmy did this all by himself, really. He had partners along the way, but this whole thing evolved out of him and that attitude. So I'll take it back. Yeah, it is unprecedented.
Is that attitude unique when you're talking to billionaires, when you're talking to the ultra wealthy, to celebrities, them not really caring about wealth as much as, hey, that's mine?
That is a common theme with artists for sure. Yes, because, it's a lot. We don't think about it because they're famous and they're famous, and so and they don't ever seem to miss, like U2 comes out with an album. It's like they very rarely come out with a crappy album, right? Mm-hmm. But they're putting their heart and soul out there. It's not like someone comes up with an idea, creates a business, and then starts selling a product. Yeah, there's meaning and you're attached to it, but you're kind of putting your heart and soul in motion, exposing yourself as an artist out there. So naturally, there's going to be a different kind of identity with it. So I think that is a common theme for them when it comes to their creativity. Exactly how Rihanna feels about Fenty, I suspect that might be a little bit more, or how Kanye felt about Adidas, or how Michael Jordan feels about Air Jordans. I suspect that's a little more of a distant relationship than Jimmy has with Margaritaville.
Rob, when you were compiling this list this year of the ultra wealthy, the billionaire celebrities, what surprised you?
What surprised me is that we got to look harder because I think there's a few more out there. If you look at the list going back in the early days, there was Merv Griffin, who had a production company, Dick Clark, who was on TV but had a production company. There were so few stars who did this. And now you see LeBron James has a production company, Reese Witherspoon has a production company, Tyler Perry has a production company. Everyone's got some sort of business going on. And you've got a number of athletes who have made over $1 billion that we know of in their athletic careers, and a number of entertainers who are approaching $1 billion or have just crossed $1 billion in earnings over their long careers. Well, we need to find the people who were smart about their money, like Jimmy, like LeBron, like Tiger, and figure out what other billionaires are out there.
And what do you think the trend is going to be going into 2024? Do you think this celebrity boom is going to continue?
I guess that's up to how good we are at doing our jobs. They're out there. It's happening. I mean, this is not a boom that we invented. The numbers speak for themselves. It's happening. So yes, it will continue.
Rob LeFranco, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Always fun to talk.